The Electric State, brand new Netflix film from the Russo brothers, who, if you don't know the Russo brothers, you probably should, but I imagine most people do. The Russo brothers are most known for their work in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They are the directors of Captain America the Winter Soldier, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame, four of the most successful films, not even just comic book films, but four of the most successful films of all time. They really created a name for themselves with their work in the MCU, and it launched them to just a new level of power within Hollywood, so much so that they were able to start their own production company at the conclusion of their work on Avengers Endgame. And so recently, over the past couple of years, they've been producing a lot of projects, and they've directed a number of features as well. This is their third feature film that they've directed outside of their work in the MCU. So they directed Cherry a few years ago with Tom Holland. A couple of years ago, they had The Gray Man with Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans. And now The Electric State is their latest, I guess we could say, blockbuster feature film that they're making for Netflix, in The Electric State, starring Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt, of course. And it reunites them with their longtime collaborators, Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, who also wrote all of those aforementioned MCU movies that I just talked about. And so this is a pair that obviously knows each other. They work together, and they're all in business and in bed with each other to make this brand new feature film. And so with all of that out the way, man, I'll pass it to you. What do you think about The Electric State?
$320 million, Lord Jesus. I am honestly, I know outside of the MCU, the Russo brothers have completely lost my trust, honestly. Between Cherry, Gray Man, and now The Electric State, they are 0 for 3 outside of the MCU. You can even bring up, I think they did You, Me, and Dupree. I think, yeah, you could. I'm 0 for 4 if you want to put it like that, man. This movie is bad. This movie is flat out bad. It's not good. It is the waste, the probably the biggest waste of $320 million I think I've ever seen on any screen ever. It is excruciating to watch. I think never have I seen something where both money and other things are being so abused on a screen to try to get a reaction, and there's a ton of cheap thrills they try to do in this film. This film is definitely supposed to feel like a little bit of Ready Player One, a little bit of whatever futuristic robotic movie you've ever seen, and it is failing at all of them. They even attempt, I think, to get this really cool star-studded cast, where maybe in something else it would have been fine, but in this, it falls down the drain completely for me. Millie Bobby Brown, Chris Pratt, Stanley Tucci, why are they all here if not for something greater? An Electric State is not greater. Very bad movie. The only thing I think I do like about this movie is about again a world that has pretty much robots are part of the world. The robots designs are kind of cool. That's the only thing I liked. I was like, oh, that's a cool design. But what does it matter if the story isn't good? What does it matter if all of these things, I think, just fall by the wayside, man? Yeah, very bad movie. I think the Russo brothers are, I don't know, man. I don't know. They just don't work outside of Marvel, or they haven't yet. Is it possible? I don't even know at this point, because 0 for 3 or 0 for 4, however you want to put it, is just not cutting it for me. And so, yeah, I can't even imagine what it looks like after this. I don't know how people keep giving them money. I guess it makes sense given the MCU and Netflix wants one of those wins that the MCU had, but they're not getting it. And I don't know what they can do to get it, because this simply is not it. This movie is awful.
Should also mention that The Electric State is based off of a 2018 novel by Simon Stålenhag, and so this is a pre-existing IP that the Russos have taken on. They eventually got the rights. Initially, this movie was going to be made at Universal. Netflix took over the rights, whatever. The Russo brothers are diabolical. These motherfuckers are unhinged, because it feels like that they're on a mission to create simultaneously some of the most expensive yet some of the worst movies that we've seen in the 21st century. I don't understand it, and I don't know how we've gotten here so quickly and so fast, but it's happening right before our eyes, because with the reported budget of $320 million, this is officially the 13th most expensive feature film ever made. And it's not going to sell a single movie ticket, because guess what? It's not in movie theaters. It's for a streaming service. So Netflix awarded these gentlemen some of the most amount of money that's ever been awarded for a feature film, and they gave us a true piece of garbage. This movie sucks. It's going to be the worst, one of the worst of the year, no doubt about it. And there's really not much else to say beyond that for the directing pair of the Russos, because with this track record and just with their ability to get this money and to be able to just flush it down the toilet seemingly with joyless, boring, almost meaningless feature films that really go nowhere and add nothing to the conversation of what we talk about from their trajectory and their career and what it's adding to their legacy as these really well-known filmmakers that did deliver such hits with the in the MCU. It's pretty baffling to just see that a movie like this, The Electric State, I think it so perfectly encapsulates what's wrong with everything happening right now within Hollywood. It's actually the perfect movie for the streaming era. It's the perfect movie for this dystopian situation that we're living in with the state of streaming, with the amount of money that's being spent on these projects that come out and they stand alongside anything and everything on Netflix and they label them as content. You know, this $320 million movie is sitting comfortably in a tile right next to Love is Blind, and they're treated equally for whatever reason. And I don't ever understand that. I don't understand the decision to make a movie for this amount of money to not at least try to get some type of return on it. But again, Netflix is vehemently against theaters. That's not their model. That's not their strategy at all and what they're going after. But we've seen them produce movies that don't even cost a fraction of this, that do extraordinarily well, that are really successful, that end up in the top 10, that become some of the most viewed movies, but they are trying to be, or they're at least trying to play the blockbuster game, but they're giving us faux blockbusters. These are not real blockbuster movies. These are fake blockbusters. They don't live up to the status and to the level and to the quality of what you would see typically in a movie theater. And I think it just really resembles just all of the problems that we kind of see with this type of film being made. It just feels lazy and cheap and almost effortless and just a waste of resources and talent and time on the part of everybody. The fact that you have people a part of this cast like Giancarlo Esposito or Anthony Mackie or Woody Harrelson signing up for this stuff and giving us just completely unmemorable performances that mean nothing to their careers makes no sense to me. Chris Pratt is once again playing the same version of himself, playing sort of a rogue scoundrel character. He can do that in his sleep these days. It's easy for him. And he recognizes it. He actually just talked about the fact that he knows he's playing this type of role over and over again, and he should probably make a pivot really soon before he just becomes just this iterative version of himself. And then Millie Bobby Brown. I mean, look, the woman is young. She has a long way to go. She should probably not say some of the things that she says in public, such as, you know, I don't watch movies because my attention span just doesn't allow me to sit through a movie. Girl, you should probably watch movies to learn how to act, because what you're doing in this movie, it's not good acting. It's not living up to the standard of what a movie like this should ultimately be. Because even with that idea and with that note, if a movie like this is going to be dumb and mindless and not mean all that much, there was a time in which you could still watch movies like that and they would still be enjoyable. They would still be cheeky, or you could still walk away and say, like, I could see the effort, I can see the attempt, I can see what they were going for. But that era is gone. When you get a trash movie like this and you know that it costs this amount of money, you can just kind of see everything and just the laziness on the part of, I think, almost everybody involved in how they sleepwalk through a production of this stature. It's kind of crazy to me. But this is where we are in this day and age. And I think people are finally recognizing it. It's getting lambasted on social media. It's getting buried with the reviews. I think it's sitting at, I don't know what, 17 or 19% on Rotten Tomatoes, something of that ilk. And so pretty much no critical reviewer liked it. But outside of even their directing work, the Russo brothers are producers as well. They've made a number of feature films that they've produced. But they made another huge bomb that cost a lot of money over at Amazon, Citadel, the show that starred Richard Madden and Priyanka Chopra. That's like a spy show that cost $300 million to make. And I think that they were greenlit for a season 2, but that show has no buzz around it. Nobody talks about Citadel at all. It's not something that people are asking me about or talking about actively. Like, it kind of came and went, but that show cost quite a lot of money as well. The Gray Man itself, when it came out a couple of years ago, cost $200 million to make. It's a much better movie, but it's still not good, and it still costs a lot of money. And now they're going to go back to the MCU. And I think this entire time we've been professing our excitement about their return, considering their track record in the MCU. But I don't know. It's
Man,
hard to look at these things and not think about them when they go back and do Doomsday and Secret Wars,
it
right?
is.
So what are
Yeah.
your feelings now seeing a movie like this? I mean, Cherry, okay, try to do a smaller indie feature, doesn't really
Hmm.
work. They go back to blockbusters with The Gray Man, not good, but not the worst thing we've seen. But then the
Right.
Electric State, this movie shits the bed. This is
Yeah.
just like the nail in the coffin where it's like, oh, these guys are just not good. They don't know what they're. It's either they don't know what they're doing or they're just
Hmm.
willingly being lazy about it. Almost, I think that's probably what it is. What are your thoughts on transitioning back to Marvel? Now that they're in this position, they're gonna go back home and be in a place that they're much more comfortable with, kind of working within the guardrails and in the sandbox that keeps them safe, as opposed to having all of this freedom that they've had for the past 4 or 5 years.
Maybe the Russos have like the same complex that the Benioff and Weiss have, where like it's the team around them is important, and when they have that specific environment and team, maybe they cook a little bit, and maybe that's the only way that the Russos are successful is having that Marvel team. And like you said, it's impossible not to look at these things, these terrible movies they've come out with, and not think, man, these are the people that's supposed to bring us back into the MCU. You kind of said it, but Cherry and Grayman are at least like, I see the attempts and I understand what they're going for, though they're still not good. Electric State is like, so y'all barely showed up with $320 million. Like y'all, what are we doing here? And so and I think it also, that's scary too, because Electric Marvel is also going to be throwing money at them for Avengers films. So it's hard not to have that in the back of my head. And maybe again, maybe just with that Marvel system, they'll bring us something good again. But man, it's impossible not now after this for me not to have Electric State like, oh my god, these are the people that made Electric State about to come out with this Marvel film in the back of my head. It's gonna be a while for. I probably won't shake it for a while.
Well, here's the thing about the Marvel system. It feels like the Marvel system is broken. Doesn't
Hmm.
feel like it's a pretty well functioning system anymore based on the past 5 or 6 years of what we've gotten. I think that
Yeah.
they had a system in place that clearly worked for a decade plus and got us across the finish line and delivered us one of the most satisfying 1-2 punch conclusions of any story in
Hmm.
any fictional sort of setting that I think we've ever gotten with Infinity War and Endgame. And now Marvel in and of itself has seen a lot of failures and they've had a lot of trials and tribulations, some wins in there for sure. They've
Yeah.
definitely had some moments where they've had an opportunity to seemingly return to their former glory, but by and large they're not doing so hot either. And so
Hmm.
we suspected, like, hey, could this just be an attempt at a bunch of executives and filmmakers who were friends trying to basically, let's relive the good old days. Like, shit was easy when we had this work in. Now it ain't so easy anymore when we
Right.
went and sought greener pastures, and it turns out the grass ain't as green on the other side as you thought it might have
No.
been for no party involved except RDJ. He's the one person who left the MCU and did find quite a bit of success. Now, he
Yeah.
stumbled initially. Doolittle was trash, but then he came back, got an
Forgot about
Academy
that.
Award, has done a couple of interesting things here and there. And so he kind of
Mhm.
returned on a high note. The Russos and Marvel themselves, they're both returning to each other like they're kind of like the boyfriend and girlfriend. They split up. They go
Mhm.
try to date other people, and it's like, damn, it's just not as good as what we had. Let's try to make this work again. And I hate to be a pessimist, but does it ever live up to the original? Does it ever work the same way again? I don't know. So that's going to
Oof.
be really interesting to see play out between Doomsday and Secret Wars. They did also just mention. I want to ask you about this. They mentioned
Mhm.
how Doomsday and Secret Wars for them is to signal a new beginning of Marvel and the MCU, as opposed to Endgame being an
Uh-huh.
endpoint, to what that story and what that saga was going to be. They called out the fact that this is a beginning, and I find
Mm.
those comments interesting because if that's the beginning, then what have we been doing for the past 6 years?
Right.
What is all of
Yeah.
this in between? This is just like the transitional shit, like the weird. Hey, this is the weird like Lakers era, after Kobe lost Shaq and he had to like work his way back to a championship. Is that what this is? Like, I'm trying to get my hands around this
Yeah.
idea of what they're trying to say, but I haven't figured it out. What do you think about those comments about what Doomsday and Secret Wars are going to look like for the MCU?
I mean, after hearing that, maybe that's what they're really going for. Maybe all of what we've been doing this whole time is the blip. You know what I'm saying? They have their own blip, stuff, something we're not supposed to remember or care about. And I think part of them saying that is the idea of having all that time to build up a villain. You know what I'm saying? We don't have like, if this was Kang, I feel like they wouldn't be saying that. If this movie was like Kang was in it and they were directing this and cool, I feel like they wouldn't be saying those words. But because Robert Downey Jr. is stepping into Doom and we have to bring up this whole new villain that we've never seen before in these films, I feel like they're like, this is actually a new beginning for us. And like you said, like, what have we been doing this entire time? Have we really been going, I think, all of this would for no payoff at all? We really not caring about any of these things or where these characters have been the past 5 years? And if so, to be honest, it's disappointing. But maybe that's what they're going for, is like, hey, new beginning because we have a new villain.
I just don't know what that means. Like, what do they mean by that new beginning? Because unless, and I'm not saying that this is going to happen, because I don't believe it's going to happen at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even thinking about the idea of like a reboot and reset and all of that stuff. I think
Yeah.
the MCU is just going to continue, because at this point we've made it so far along. Like, how do you just like blow something up and just like start over? I don't know if you can really do that,
Yeah.
but beginning is interesting, I guess, in the context of Secret Wars as a story, because maybe theoretically we can be leaning into the just the idea that whatever universe comes out on the other side of this whole thing is going to
Mm-hmm.
just be, it's going to be a
The
completely different
universe.
universe that looks totally
Yeah.
different, that's going to
Mm-hmm.
have mutants and the Fantastic Four, all of that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what they're signaling. But I don't know. Those movies also have to, they have to stick the landing in as far as, okay, if it's a new beginning, then you also have to give us characters and heroes that we want to
Mm-hmm.
follow
Mm-hmm.
for the next however many years until the next thing. And
Yeah.
they haven't really done that so far. Like, the MCU has kind of lost a lot of the characters we gave a fuck about, and they've given us some where it's like, I guess that's like a copy of a copy of a copy, and
Yeah.
as you continue to make those things, they lose their original original
Mm-hmm.
juice, and so
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Netflix, though, can they continue this model? $320 million. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of fucking money. They are the most the biggest company in terms of entertainment in Hollywood at this point. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
their market cap is like the combination of Disney and Warner and Universal. Like, they have a lot of money. But is this sustainable to continue to pump out movies with these types of budgets at this level, and knowing that not only are you not going to get any of that back per se, but the quality of them is going to be looked at very questionably. We're gonna even look at these and say, like, well, why did you spend that much? But then also, you gave me a shitty product at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
While they're raising their prices like every 6 months. I mean, they're price hiking every chance that they get. Can they continue this model of just shelling out these massive boatloads of money for these movies that are just not living up to the standards of I think what people are looking for?
I don't think they can. Well, I think they can for the short future. If they really wanted to, they could turn out a couple of these things. Like you said, they have a ton of money, but is it sustainable in the long run? I don't think it is, man. Eventually, I think, and you said, you even said, I think people are starting to realize and recognize the bullshit of the streaming era and what they're just throwing money to make these movies. And I think now that people are starting to smell that, to get a gist of that, why would I click on this movie? Sure, it could pop up all at once. Why am I clicking on this thing if everybody just told me it was bad, or like a couple people told me it was bad, or you can tell it's not going to be a good film? I don't think it's profitable. And I think, honestly, I think stuff like this also potentially turns off other filmmakers, other people from wanting to kind of work with them. Because what is this? Do you care about the product that you're putting out? I don't think you do. So yeah, I think it's possible for them, but I don't think in the long run it really is sustainable for what they want their business model to be. I think even Netflix, which is crazy, I feel like they should have learned this by now, but I feel like Netflix at one point, they you have to learn that the things that have quality are the things that take you over. A lot of people are clicking on Netflix because this movie heard really good things about, this movie people heard, this TV show people heard really good things about. That's why people are opening your app, not because this movie just happens to show up and it's not good. I don't think it works like that. So yeah, I think they could, but I don't think they should.
This might be the last of its kind, because this has been going on for a while. There have been a number of projects through streaming. Netflix has been a big purveyor of this, where they cost an exceedingly vast amounts of money. Your red ones, your red notices,
Oh man.
your Irishmans. Although I'll give that a pass. You know, things like the
Yeah.
Irishman and
Good
Killers
movie.
of the Flower Moon, because you know what kind of business you're getting into for that type of movie. But these movies that do try to live up to a blockbuster standard, I just don't. I don't know. I feel like that this might be the last of their kind, and so as a filmmaker, if you were able to get in and get this type of money for a feature project while you could, hey, good for you, because most directors will never, ever, ever touch this amount of budget a day in their lives.
Yeah.
But this is something that I do think even themselves at Netflix, they are contemplating, hey, we probably shouldn't do this. Now, they're not gonna take this 320 million and make 50 indie movies. That's not gonna happen. They're not gonna get into that model. They're still going to produce, I think, blockbuster-esque types of films, but there are levels to this. 320 million is the top tip-top level of what it takes to make a movie. Why not go a little bit closer to like 90, 100? You know, that could be a thing. You know, let's probably stick within that range. And so I think that that's probably the case that they may sort of lean into the future. But just to spend this, just, I mean, we were giving shit on Red One. That was 250. 320 is just like, well, okay.
320.
Another 80 million on top of that.
So much money.
In fact, I saw this interesting stat which said that the last 10 Best Picture winners at the Oscars, if you collectively combined all of their budgets, it would total around $230 million.
Wow.
Meaning you still would have an additional $90 million and it would not make up the budget of the Electric State. That's what we're talking about here, folks. That's just to put into context what this movie represents. And it's just not good. It's not good. It's not sustainable. And I don't think we should be encouraging and highlighting this anymore. But we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on the Electric State. If you've checked it out on Netflix, hit us up and let us know what you think about it.